Hey, there we go.
All right.
All right.
We think we're live. Sorry about that once again, everybody. We had some very last minute troubleshooting issues here, but I think we're okay, at least in the studio room here. Can everybody hear and see us? Just to double check first.
I'm watching the comments on YouTube. People are waving. I assume that means they can see us.
Hello.
All right, it looks like we are good to go. Yep.
All right, perfect. So hello again, and thanks everybody to the very slightly delayed, welcome to the very slightly delayed WinUI stand-up for February. So here we have special guest Miguel, who's going to be talking about WinUI Desktop, the plans for Win32 apps plus WinUI. We have Savoy, who's kind of wrangling everything for us. And I'm Jesse. So we are all program managers who work on the WinUI team at Microsoft. Let me switch over to my content here. Cool.
You can tell we're still learning the studio.
Yeah, we thought we had everything solved, and then at the last minute there was another audio issue. So we're gonna stay and troubleshoot again after this. I think we have some sort of anti-technology field, which is a bit of a problem in our line of work, but we're gonna figure it out. So
we don't see your PowerPoint now.
Yeah, it'll just take a sec. So the audio should be in sync with it. So just as a recap, since we know we have a lot of new people that come and watch the call every month and who might see recordings afterward, we're just going to quickly recap what is WinUI. So we know a lot of the people who are really passionate about it, which we appreciate. Well, this will be all old news to you, but just to recap. So what is WinUI? Well, when we talk about WinUI, WinUI is the native UI platform for Windows 10. And so we use it at Microsoft, and we have it out there for app developers to use to build rich .NET and C++ apps for Windows 10 devices. So we actually use this ourselves. It powers the Windows and Xbox OS shell and many apps, and as well as platforms like Xamarin Forms and React Native Windows. So when you run those on Windows, it's actually using WinUI under the covers to give you great native performance. So we kind of have two versions of WinUI that we talk about. So just to make it less confusing, we call them WinUI 2 and 3. So WinUI 2 is the thing you actually see in our GitHub repo right now. And so it provides the latest XAML UI controls and Fluent design for Windows 10 UWP apps. So this is what's there today. The main thing we're working on actively right now as a team is really WinUI 3 though. So this is the upcoming next version of the whole Windows UI platform that we're planning to release this year. So this is the full UI stack, including XAML and composition and input, now decoupled from the operating system. So we have a bunch of goals with this. We're trying to remove the barriers between UWP and Win32 apps so that you can use the modern WinRT APIs as well as all of the existing Win32 APIs, and that's what Miguel is going to be talking more about later in the call. We're also supporting the latest .NET 5 as well as C++, especially C++ WinRT, which is the latest C++ 17 compliant ISO C++ standard. And we're also delivering this down level so that it will be backward compatible on Windows 10 versions. So no more will you have to wait for UWP API for all of your users to update to the latest version of Windows before you can really use them. Everything that we plan to add to WinUI will work down level to the versions of Windows 10 that most people are running. And for more info, there's a YouTube link here. There was a session at the Build conference last year called Making Sense of WinUI, UWP, Win32, and .NET. So this is a great video to watch. It kind of gives just an overview of all this kind of stuff. So if you want a link to this, it's also, you can find it in our GitHub repo, or just search for this. So about the community call, we do one of these every month. So we do this for a few reasons, just to basically give a status update on both WinUI 2 and 3, as well as just talk to all the great community members out there, see what everybody's up to, and answer questions that you might have about WinUI and sort of what our roadmap and status is. So today our plan is to talk about WinUI 2, including 2.3 and 2.4 updates. So this is the version we have out stable right now, as well as the upcoming version we're working on. Give a little bit of an update on the Microsoft 365 Developer Day and some of the dual screen development information that was announced last week as well, and this week. As well as give an update on WinUI 3, so what's the latest on the alpha, talk about our feature development status this month, and then we're going to hopefully spend most of our time talking with Miguel about WinUI for desktop. And we also love to answer your questions as part of this, so there's been a long GitHub thread like we have every month with lots of questions, so we'll try to get to a lot of those, as well as from Twitter. And then if anybody has any questions as we go, feel free to just throw them in the YouTube video chat, and we'll try to get to everything.
It's a lot of content.
There's a lot of content. We're going to have to talk fast. All right. So WinUI 2. We just released a WinUI 2.3 stable update last week with various fixes. My favorite one I just wanted to call out is that number box buttons line up now. So this is really exciting.
Yeah. Thank you guys again for all your number box questions last month. Tammy and I went to work at getting as many of those ironed out as we could. I think we're down to 4, which is significantly less, especially in just a month's time. So shout out to Tammy.
Yeah. This one, I don't know. 1 pixel off, things really bother me because I have a background in rendering, UI and stuff as well. So I love that we're getting to this. So number box is one of our new controls that was proposed by someone in the community, actually, Fonz. And so, it still had a few issues to iron out, and that's what we've been doing. So it's great. We love the feedback. Thanks a lot. The next thing for WinUI 2.4, which is currently in preview right now, we have some updates to number box again. So the things I was just talking about, we both updated the stable version of WinUI 2.3 as well as rolled some extra stuff that wasn't as important into the next 2.4 release. We also have updates for the tab view control, progress bar, navigation view. We also just added a radial gradient brush. So that's one of those kind of like WPF compat things that we just had always been meaning to get to but never did. And now it was easy because with WinUI 2, we can just go ahead and do it. All right. I also wanted to talk a little bit about what else we're working on this month. So people often wonder, what is the Windows Developer Platform Team 2? And it's not just WinUI. We actually do a number of things. So the first one, though, I'll mention is that, again, so we updated the WinUI 3 alpha last week to add the Chromium WebView 2, which we talked about in the last community call with sort of a preview. So that's available now. You can go, if you just had installed the alpha before, you should get the latest templates with it. And if not, you can just go, search for WinUI 3 and find it and get the latest alpha. And so this has been pretty exciting because it's a new WebView 2 control, which will be the default in WinUI 3, and it works on Chromium. So it's, you get very consistent rendering everywhere and really nice performance. So a lot of people have been trying that out and giving some feedback, which is great. Thanks. Another thing I'll talk about is we had a Microsoft 365 Developer Day event recently, as a virtual event online, so anybody can go look at it. And our team is responsible for a number of things related to that. So we work on design patterns for basically developing new design patterns for how to deal with UI in a 2-screen environment. And so one of the things we created in WinUI to help with that is this 2-pane view control for dual screen development. And so people have been getting started with that. I'll just click a couple links here just to update real quick. Oop. There we go. So there's a blog post you can find here that kind of just talks about, from Kevin Gallo, the vice president of our developer platform division. And so you can find just sort of some updates here. And so we definitely recommend reading this. We're spending a lot of time on dual screen devices right now, as well as the dev platform for them. And so WinUI is a big part of that. So in here it talks a little bit about being able to build web apps using WinUI 3 with the new WebView 2 control, as well as building native UWP apps using WinUI 3. So, it's pretty exciting stuff. And if you want any more info on dual screen development, there's also a link there which will take you to, a set of videos about dual screen development. So some of the program managers from our team helped record a lot of these videos. And so I definitely recommend checking these out. It's awesome stuff. All right, another thing that our team recently did was release a preview of Windows Terminal, the 0.9 release. So this is the feature complete release for V1 for Terminal. So that's pretty exciting. And this actually uses WinUI for its UI as well under the covers. And so, yep, this is the same team. And then another cool thing is React Native for Windows and Mac. So they took the new high-performance C++ version of React Native for Windows and Mac that they've been working on for a while. And that's now the default. So the main branch of React Native for Windows is now C++ written by our team and using XAML under the covers to do all of its rendering on Windows. So that's pretty awesome. And they're working on the roadmap for Mac support now as well. So basically just an update for all the main desktop environments for React Native.
All the things is just 1 month?
Yeah, this is just the last month. And then the last thing our team is working on, well, actually there's other things, but the last one I'll call out is Power Toys. And so this stuff is awesome too. There's lots of, if anybody remembers Power Toys from back in the day, well, we're bringing it back. And so there's some people on our team really passionate about this. And, there's some examples in here of we're hoping to use WinUI 3 for the UI for some of these things. And what we thought was really cool in the Power Toys GitHub repo is, some people were even like making mock-ups of potential settings, apps for Power Toys using WinUI 3 and stuff like that. So there's some cool like, animated mock-ups here. We thought that was really cool. So definitely check that out too. All right, WinUI 3, what are we doing? So here's our current target schedule. So I think this is the first time we've kind of like officially said this. This is kind of what we've been working toward for a while on the team. We shipped an alpha version at the Ignite conference in November. We just released a new preview with WebView 2 this month, very recently. The next kind of major milestone that you'll probably see from us is what we've been calling Preview 1. And again, these are just like working names and working schedules. This is definitely subject to change, so we can't make any total promises on exactly that we'll hit these specific dates or call them these specific things, but this is just what we're working on right now at this point in time. So yeah, we're planning to release a Preview 1 at Build in May. The Build conference. And so the plan is to include a preview of WinUI for desktop apps. And so this is the Win32 app model support that Miguel is going to be talking about more soon. So that's pretty exciting. One of the other main priorities that we've been working on, like we've been saying, is open sourcing the XAML platform. So not just the controls that are in WinUI 2, but actually the whole XAML platform, the whole framework. And so this is actually a lot of work for our team because XAML today, UWP XAML is part of Windows. And so a lot of our work is around decoupling that from the platform, from the OS, and being able to ship it separately. And that takes a lot of untangling to do. So that's where most of our open source time is going. And we're working on that in parallel with Preview 1. Once we're done that, the plan is to start being able to do preview builds more often, similar to the model we use with WinUI 2, where we actually, you can see our pipe. Eventually, the plan is that you can see our pipelines and how it gets built and everything. And, you can get daily builds or build your own. But the main previews we release on NuGet are kind of like a monthly preview build where you can try out the new APIs that are in progress, the sort of experimental stuff. And then if you want the stable things for production apps, we ship those a few times a year. And then finally, we plan to release WinUI 3 this year still. So it's looking like late 2020. And actually what I'm gonna do in my list here is, I haven't published this. I don't even know if I should show it, but I'm gonna. So this is a kind of a roadmap update that I was thinking about publishing maybe with the community calls in our GitHub repo every month, and eventually once we have a website, maybe there. And so this is kind of like a more detailed roadmap of where exactly we are on features, because I know people keep asking like, what about swap chain panel? What's the status on that? And so we started collecting, what are the actual exact features that we still have to keep working on, and we can give some status there. So I'm just going to scroll through this really, really quick just to give a preview of what's going to be in this. So the goal is that we're going to post this, soon, hopefully, but and then update it every month. So in terms of new plan features, we're actually not doing a ton of new feature work in WinUI 3. Sort of just philosophically, we're really trying to, like we always do, maintain a high degree of compatibility, sort of release to release. And so we're not focusing on doing a ton of new feature work. We're really focused on those things I mentioned around getting the XAML platform decoupled from the OS, supporting Win32 desktop apps, and then open sourcing. Those are really our three main focuses. And then once we're done those, that's when we can go back to adding tons of features and all that good stuff. So there are a few new things that we call out here that will be new with WinUI 3 that you don't get today with UWP XAML and WinUI 2. So one of those is backward compatibility for not just XAML, but also big parts of the composition platform, as well as input, although most of the input usage is kind of under the covers at the moment. So that is pretty much working today. You can actually take the WinUI 3 alpha and run it down level. We are ambitiously hoping to make other few minor updates. One of them is to be able to support custom data templates in markup. We don't have an exact date for that yet. It's a little bit at risk. So again, if we update this every month, we can kind of give the status on that. The next thing is supporting M6 packaging. That's a big goal. That's kind of the main container that we're trying to use. .NET 5 support, so we're working on that now. We're hoping to also have that in preview for Preview 1. separating out the NuGet composition package. This is mostly so that we can have XAML build open source separately and stuff like that. So that probably we won't get to until after the preview, but that's on the roadmap. Other interesting things, we're still hoping to unseal the XAML control base classes. So this is kind of a small change, but we hope that it's a useful one, because right now it's a lot of the base classes are sealed, and that makes it a little bit harder to make your own types that derive from them. So we're just going to unseal things, and hopefully that's all right. We're also looking at some migration tooling. So one of the things people bring up a lot is like, hey, I have an existing UWP and WinUI 2 app. What's the story to get that moved to WinUI 3? Is there anything we can do to make that easier? We're hoping so. We're still kind of scoping that and figuring out how feasible it's going to be, but that's definitely an area we're investigating for after the preview. WebView 2, we already talked about. It's actually in the new preview, so you can try that out today. That's the Chromium WebView. The one thing missing from that, notably today, is a lot of the sort of core APIs. So right now you get kind of the rendering and input, and you get the control, but there's not a lot of the sort of programmability surface. Right now those are still just all COM APIs that you would have to get through the native WebView object. So we're actually going to surface those through a separate API. It's just not ready yet. But we're hoping, again, by preview 1, all of the programmable WebView APIs should be there. And the last thing is we are hoping to make a few Xbind improvements. So Xbind is the much better, cool new replacement for binding, which is the sort of more WPF-like one. Xbind can achieve much better performance through sort of compile time code generation and stuff like that.
This is really cool, Jesse. So the thing is, we are being completely transparent and honest about the thing that we are going to ship in WinUI 3. This is exactly the same table that we are using internally to tracking the work. Sometimes this kind of table can overwhelm you, but the goal is be clear about in what point we are in each feature, and sometimes some feature are tricks. Sometimes we can make it, other time it can't.
Yep, very true. So this was a small enough list. I figured with the new stuff I would just go through each thing, but yeah, we can't make any exact promises, but this is the latest status we have.
Yep.
The last section is about WinUI for desktop apps and some of the stuff there, so I'm gonna scroll past this pretty quick, and Miguel can talk more about it later, but basically there's some work that we're planning to do around having desktop template support, some new windowing APIs and stuff like that. Yeah. Then the next section will be talking about the compatibility backlog for 3.0. And so when we talk about compatibility, this is really with UWP, XAML, as well as WinUI 2. So anything that we haven't called out here is probably already working in the alpha. Actually, we have most of the platform working. So there's a few notable exceptions here. So again, I won't go through all these, but you can kind of see we don't have all the tooling in yet. Media isn't quite working yet. Swap chain panel isn't working yet. I will say, it's not looking likely we're going to be able to get to this for preview 1 at build, which makes us very sad. So this is high on our priority list of things that we want to get in. We know a lot of people are waiting for it. It's just there are some challenges with this as we lift out the composition platform as well. We can't rely on the DWM, the desktop window manager that is built into Windows to help us compose the DirectX content with XAML composition content. So we know what to do. It's just work. And it's not looking likely we'll get to that for preview 1, which makes me sad, but we'll definitely have it for 3.0. And there's a few things that are kind of at risk that we're working on, and then a few things that we don't think are going to make 3.0, but we'll definitely come back to this list, and we're going to keep working on WinUI, and so we'll reevaluate these for a future release. And then the last thing that will be in here is there's a few things we're just not going to support, and we think actually this is probably okay. The one that's really notable is maybe WebView. Right now we're thinking we just have WebView 2. The goal with WebView 2 is to be very compatible and basically do everything WebView does, but better. So we don't think we need a WebView. All right. So my goal is to try to post this soon once we review it a little more. Okay. WinUI for desktop apps.
Whoa.
Yeah, our main topic. So we actually have a separate.
Sure. So yes, I want to highlight exactly the same things that Jesse did before. So WinUI 3 is about decouple the operating system XAML platform and all other frameworks like the input and composition from the operating system and making work down level, right? And this is going to allow to us just to ship in the WinUI out of band, so we can add a new feature on our own pace, and this is wonderful because it's going to help us to add in more and more feature quickly. This is everyone was asking. Today, just to say, I want to say today, WinUI 3 is a UI presentation framework. It's an UI framework. It's not about a replacement for a UWP platform. It's just this presentation framework, shipping in some ways on NuGet package or whatever we choose, and that's it.
Yeah, it's the UI layer. So UWP is a lot bigger than just the XAML UI.
Exactly. I know that all the people really know this. People are really familiar with this presentation. It's about the platform that we have today. So we have this Windows 10 platform with the XAML framework, with the XAML control, the composition animation. The application code can be the UWP application using the XAML custom control, WinUI 2, and also it can be a XAML C++ application using XAML Islands or .NET. Every people knows about that. The thing that we are doing is just decoupling and lifting all these components from the operating system. And this is going to be WinUI 3. Simple, right? The thing I want to highlight is, well, when we are talking about WinUI 3, WinUI 3 is just a part of the UWP platform, something that we call Windows 10 UWP platform. WinUI 3 is this XAML libraries. Everything is in windows.ui.xaml. A lot of APIs in windows.ui.input and windows.ui.composition, making work in down level support. But the UWP platform is a lot of more stuff, right? It's about the application model. It's about supporting all these kind of things like resume and suspense. It's about having a like 6,000 library for WinRT. I don't know, it's a bunch of WinRT libraries and API. Means that not all the Windows 10 UWP APIs are going to work down level. Where the thing that we are telling to the people is WinUI 3 is about just making work this subset of APIs.
Yeah, it's the UI platform. Basically, you can take the modern XAML UI platform and you can use it with your choice of app model and language.
Exactly. But one thing that we want to achieve with WinUI 3 is making work not only in this UWP world, but also making work in Win32. Win32 app model for us means, for example, the C++ Win32 application created with the Microsoft Foundation classes, the common controls, and also the WinForms and the WPF applications. The idea is, what if we can just make work this isolate framework that we are decoupling from the operating system, not only in this UWP platform, but also in Win32.
Yeah, because they have pretty robust API support overall, but like their UI stack is, pretty old now.
Exactly. So one of the questions that always people ask to us is about, all right, what that means the app model. What is an app model? So app model is a little complicated. It's a little complicated to define because depends on the scenario, depends on the people, but what that means the app model for us. So first of all, we consider an app model something that is about how the application is running. What is the process that is running this application? Is using an app container, or are you using some kind of user capability in this container? Another question is about the application lifetime management of this application money. How it looks like that? Can run, resume, suspense, all the things. You know that Win32 and UWP have different application lifetime management. Another aspect about the application model is that activation of the components that we have today. With UWP, we have this called WinRT free activation, and with Win32 we will also have the COM, right? And the activation with .NET, which is based on COM as well. Another aspect about the application model is about the windowing infrastructure.
And we know this one's really exciting to a lot of people because people have been trying core window.
Exactly. So UWP was created with a new implementation of the windowing. It's called core window, which means that it assumes UWP application assume that there is only just one window. Later we are starting to expand this concept with the app windows concept, but it's based on just one core window implementation.
And it was also very abstract, so that it would work on Xbox and Surface Hub and all these other places too, right?
Exactly. It happens that in Win32 we have the HWinds,
right? So, which are more desktop tailored specific.
Then we have also another aspect is about the input. We have in UWP the core input, which is a completely new implementation of how the input works with the platform. But in Win32, we have the classical Win32 input that doesn't have any cool name. It's just Win32 input. And there is more and more aspects that we need to take care about when we are talking about the application model. So what that means that when we are going to make for WinUI 3 in Win32 have some consequences. Some consequences is not the UWP API are going to work in Win32 because again it's just making work the WinUI 3 desktop, WinUI 3 presentation framework in Win32. And things, for example, get from current view method that we have a bunch of that in the platform. Application view, which is a concept which is coupled with the core window concept, even the core window concept, and more APIs doesn't make sense in the Win32 world, right?
Well, it's not that they don't entirely make sense. It's just that they don't, cover all the scenarios people want to do, right?
Well, for sure. Even more, we are starting to introduce new concepts to isolate from the application model from the SAML perspective. We introduce this thing called SAML root that is going to give you the context about how the visual tree of SAML is being executed. So you can get the size of the SAML content, you can get the scale or the DPI that is applied when the DPI changes, all this stuff. Yeah. So we are starting to moving forward about abstracting from the application model, and we are starting that in 1903 build.
So March.
Yes.
So philosophically, basically, that means we're trying to make the UI layer now an abstraction that works for both Win32 and UWP. Is that the right way to think of it?
Yep, it's correct. So when people are asking about, okay, UWP or Win32, so this is
you still have to right now make a choice.
Exactly, it's the dilemma about are we going to go with Win32 always or UWP? What happens there?
And to be clear, again, we're just talking about app models here, not API. So we're doing a lot of work to be able to use WinRT APIs, the modern APIs, sort of across both of these and so on. So this is really about the app model.
Just making sure that when you are making a decision, you have some kind of criteria, you have some kind of requirement, a puntistic requirement on the table. Just for example, thinking about the UWP is the best platform for target multiple devices, and Win32 is desktop because it was created for desktop. And you are thinking about, hey, I need the best battery performance, battery consumption, and security. Use UWP because it was created with this kind of goal in mind. Win32 is the best to do whatever you want with the operating system because you have the free to access any kind of part of the OS.
So we actually see this in the 10x differences that you can see in those videos I mentioned earlier as well, right? Like we have different containers for UWP versus Win32 that provide different types of isolation and stuff to run on 10x, and UWP is sort of the most modern and close to the OS and least overhead version.
And also another interesting point, yes, is about the API set. For example, UWP get the latest new innovation in the API set. Win32 API set is great, it's huge. We support a lot of things, and even today makes sense for several applications. Just continue using this Win32 API. So you have to evaluate exactly which are the requirements of your applications and just make a decision about go with UWP and Win32. But also just remember that we can use a lot of UWP APIs inside Win32 as well. So
right, the power of WinRT.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So our approach our mindset for WinUI 3 desktop or WinUI 3 in Win32 is about not reinventing the wheel. It's about thinking in the thing that we have today and trying just to, let's say, to create an abstraction layer on the top of the application model that we have today.
Yeah, so there's not going to be two versions of WinUI 3 or anything like that. We have one WinUI 3 that works for both app models.
Exactly. I think one thing that we are working right now is about in the windowing. So the idea is why not just to have the upper windowing API at the level of SAML where it's like a facade between the core window and edge wing, so developer can just starting to write code, just forget about if they're using edge wing or core window.
So that sounds a lot like WPF, right? Like you know,
sounds similar.
similar, maybe
Similar.
not exactly, but similar.
WPF is based in H-Wings.
Yeah, but you don't have to know that necessarily.
Exactly. But the idea is that's sounds like that. And
There'll be a XAML class you use, and you don't necessarily need to know it's an H-Wind.
Exactly. Another thing is about the application object, the SAML application object. We are going just to continue improving the SAML application object and making it even more abstract, so he can handle all these things. The idea is, this is our mindset. The idea is the same code can work in UWP and in Win32. However, we know for sure that is this doable, or maybe there is going to be some caveats about this API that we are right now designing. It's something that we're investigating right now. That's the mindset. The mindset is try to create an API that works in both worlds. And sometimes maybe we have to make some kind of commitment about just not making work in both, but we try to avoid that.
Yeah, so not only will the platform be the same for both in theory, but most of the app code you write for XAML should be the same as well, right?
Exactly.
Like if you go get an H-Win and do something directly, well, that won't necessarily work in UWP on an Xbox, but
yeah. For example, thinking about with the windowing APIs, the windowing APIs is this extraction layer we are creating where you can maximize, minimize, and do several stuff. But what if you want to do specific things for the H-Winds that is not possible to do in core window? So the idea is, why not just to give you some backdoor? Can you to give you, for example, the handle of this window? So in this moment that you get the handle of this window, you can do whatever you want with the H-Win. But in this point, you are making the commitment that your code is no longer working both platforms. So there are several caveats and consequences about doing everything, and also have the power to create more custom apps.
So hopefully we get the best of all worlds.
Yeah.
But with that great power will come the great responsibility.
Sounds familiar. All right, it's not working. It's working right now. So this is the development path that we are telling to the people, just the way to think about when we are creating or maintenance the application that we already have. For example, if you have a UWP Win32 or .NET application and in maintenance mode, just fixing bugs and all these things, stay there.
Yeah, so to be clear, like UWP XAML as well as in maintenance mode for us. So we're not, totally dropping it. It'll still be supported and bug fixed and all that. It's just most of our new feature development is going into WinUI, right?
Exactly. Another thing is, all right, if you want to modernize your Win32 application, you can use the WinUI Islands. We will talk about WinUI Islands later. If you are creating a new application, a new greenfield application from scratch, so you can choose between UWP and Win32, and you need to analyze exactly which are the application models that fits much further on your with your requirements, right?
So real quick though, you had an interesting note here at the bottom. Like, what do you do if down level? Like, what should I do if I'm starting a new app today and I want to prototype some stuff with an eye towards WinUI 3? What's the best path forward for me?
So, easy. So the idea is, all right, if you want to, the idea is you want to just to starting to improve your application slowly at your own pace from Win32 and starting to adding islands at the content. You can do it, and in some future when the entire UI is going to be like a continent of island, then you can move to WinUI 3 island, WinUI 3 desktop.
Okay, so basically you get started with UWP XAML islands today and get a good sense of what it will feel like to be able to create a Win32 island.
Exactly.
Or sorry, a WinUI 3 island for Win32 island.
Exactly, that's the recommendation.
Great.
That makes sense, right? It's common sense. Talking about islands roadmap, I want to be very clear about what we are thinking in islands. So today we have the OS SAML islands, or SAML island version 1. It only works for the OS, the UWP SAML that we have today. This is a maintenance mode, means that we are not going to invest in adding new feature to that. We are not going to have something called like SAML Island version 2, because it's about this is about improving the OS UWP platform, and it's something that we say that no, our investment is going to be just in WinUI 3.
And so this was just a term that was floating around for a little while, right?
Exactly, and it's making a lot of confusion for just to make clear that people understand that the things that we are right now doing is about WinUI islands, which is the goal is parity with the operating system SAML island that we have today. For example, when we ship this in the late of the 2020, the idea is you can get exactly the same thing that we have today with the SAML island version 1, plus all the bugs that were already fixed, all of this stuff.
Yeah,
right?
So later this year, the latest and greatest will always be WinUI 3 islands.
Sure. And also you have to consider that islands is going to be coming like a new, like an additional controller feature inside of the WinUI 3 platform. They are thinking in islands like the color picker control. So it means that it's not going to be a color picker version 2, 3, or 4. It's just going to be a one color picker, and you're adding a new feature. This is exactly the same thing with WinUI Island. It's part of the WinUI 3 framework. Each release, we are going to add in more and more feature for that.
So that's great. You'll be able to see it in open source in the repo, and see as we work on it like any other control.
Exactly. So another question is about, wow, people are confused about islands and desktop. They say, all right, it's not desktop using SAML islands, or they didn't get it. So think about that. Island is about mixing UI framework. For example, you can mix WPF with WinUI 3, WinForms with WinUI 3, WPF WinForm UI 3.
But just in specific ways, right? Like
exactly.
you could put the modern XAML with WinUI 3 into WPF.
Yeah, the consequences about just mixing all these frameworks is you have a very complex solution in your Visual Studio. Yeah, for example, this is a canonical layout for a C++, a WinRT, SAML island scenario where you need your Win32 app, this thing called desktop window Win32 app, and you also require a UWP application where you have the SAML application object, you have the user controls, you need to reference all the things manually, and also you need to take care about a lot of stuff. Yeah, for example, you need to take care about the focus management, the activation types are okay, respond to the Windows events, all these things. The .NET helpers that we already have in the Windows Community Toolkit helps you a lot to simplify that. But for C++ developers, we don't have these helpers, and even the .NET helpers are not. There are some gaps there that are not covering some specific scenario. So the idea is, all right. So if you have several islands, that makes sense to have this kind of mixing framework. But what happens if you really want just an entire island, something that we call a continental island, continent that this continents is everything is WinUI, and you don't require just another presentation framework. You only require the underneath technology like .NET Core, like the Win32, all this stuff.
So this is what happens when you decide I want to make a Win32 app model app using WinUI, and I don't need any existing WinForms or WPF or anything. I just want the modern stuff.
Exactly.
This is like I go file new project in Visual Studio. This is what happens.
Exactly. So instead of have this kind of layout or complicated solutions, and also taking care about all this stuff like the activation, like that focus management things, the thing is we are going to simplify all the things. We are offering to you the WinUI 3 desktop. So WinUI 3 desktop is isolate for you for all these complex concepts and create a WinUI application in the same way that we are creating UWP application. Exactly the same application model and developer experience.
Awesome.
So what we are working right now, so we continue decoupling the APIs from the SAML input and composition. We are changing our build system, as Jesse said, making work in GitHub. We are right now working windowing an application object API aspects. I'm expecting to make it public soon, so we just to get feedback from you, from the developers.
So this is the real meat of sort of the Win32 app model, right? Like windowing and how your application object works and all that kind of stuff. It's the exciting stuff.
Exactly, and also still have a lot of exploration and new scenarios. We need to require some prototyping investigation. Maybe we can share a little the API spec.
Sure.
So can you please share computer, man? So
So this is an example?
This is an example. This is how we create a spec, the WinUI 3 API spec. And the idea is, first of all, we internally starting to design this API spec with a lot of features, trying to rationalize the investment, thinking about what are the best features that we can add in this new functional, in this new
This is just
API.
a quick preview of like, what we're working on internally. But the goal is definitely to make this public on GitHub soon. It's just that, Miguel
exactly
is trying to get his stuff lined up first.
So it's a very long spec. And the idea is, why not just to make this public as soon as possible, get feedback, make the people participate on that.
Yeah, so this definitely isn't done, right? This is just the proposal of what we're going to start working on, or actually we've already started working on in some cases.
Yeah, we know the fundamental. We need to prototype the things. We need to make sure that the thing that we are proposing makes sense and doable. And after we are confident enough, then we can make policies like, okay, we don't want to waste your time and thinking about things that maybe are not doable. This is the thing that we know that we believe that can be achieved. Just get the feedback and starting to answer questions.
So how long do we have to wait?
Well, I don't know. I'm expecting us 1 week or 2 weeks, no more than
So
that.
very soon, before the next call, probably. Although again, we can't make promises.
For sure. Another thing that we are covering here is not only the windowing thing, it's also how we are going to adapt the SAML application object to make it work in Win32 as well. So adding new events and methods in the application object as well.
Yeah, love it. Cool. All right, so we're running a little bit short on time, so I think we're going to skip to some questions.
Let's
hold on. I actually have a couple here, real quick. I'm just going to go through first.
Oh,
Real quick. So let's go back here. Here we go. There's a few philosophical questions that people kind of had brought up on GitHub in the issue and in some pull requests and stuff like that. So I want to talk about a couple of those very quickly. So the first one is about, how do we think about modern XAML and sort of the traditional concepts of like retemplating and customizing animations and stuff of like new controls like progress ring, because we're starting to use more like hard-coded composition animations and things like that to get like, close to the metal performance and stuff like that without the storyboard abstractions in some cases, and like, tying input to animations and things like that. So we've been trying to really design controls like this so that you can at least override and plug in your own animations for these things, but we don't have great markup support for doing that right now. And so that's a thing that we're actually looking at across a number of fronts. We have these kind of integration points with like XAML Light and XAML Composition Brush Base, where you can start like taking composition effects and brushes and painting XAML elements with them. So yeah, I just wanted to say, like, we know that it's interesting to be able to have an easier abstraction model for that potentially in markup. And so again, that's something that we want to get back to. And so Ranjesh, our dev lead, had opened an issue specifically for Progress Ring to revisit this, but sort of more holistically, we want to take a look at that going forward. But for now, at least, like, even with these controls like Progress Ring that have composition animations in them, you should be able to retemplate those to remove those animations and kind of do your own thing. All right, the next question was, what's the roadmap for C++ improvements, especially C++ WinRT? So we know there's a ton of C++ native developers out there, and right now we're really pushing C++ WinRT forward. That's what actually we're writing WinUI new stuff in ourselves even, and as well as like new apps like Calculator and things like that that use WinUI or not that Calculator's new, but the new work they're doing there. And so authoring idle is a little bit painful. That's like the sort of language to define your interface of your objects and stuff like that, and doing more manual XAML bindings is a little more work than C++ CX was. And so I just wanted to point out, like, we talk about that with, we were just talking about that with Kenny Kerr and Herb Sutter, who's like, on the ISO C++ standards board and everything like that. And there's some cool stuff coming, to what we hope to make that better over time with like reflection, which is now sort of a top priority for ISO C++ in the next couple of years. And so we're hoping that the C++ WinRT dev experience gets better over time. There's some cool stuff that we can do, and actually the C++ spec itself is going to change to be able to make some of this easier. So we're definitely working on that over time. Related, people are asking, like, what's the plan for Win2D? One of the reasons I use C++ and COM is to get DirectX support. So Win2D is one of the libraries that we know a lot of people use and love for sort of 2D DirectX rendering, and so we have a work stream to go and kind of like identify libraries like that people use and get those updated to be able to use WinUI 3. So we're hoping to have a version later. It's just right now in particular that's kind of blocked on the lack of a swap chain panel. Another quick question was, what's the philosophy for breaking changes with WinUI 3? Could we use the switch to WinUI 3 to also fix some like legacy concerns that might be like minor breaking changes, like stack panel applying some spacing to collapsed items and stuff like that? Philosophically, we're really trying to make WinUI 3 really as compatible and easy to migrate from UWP as we can, like UWP XAML. And so we're not really planning a lot of breaking changes other than, you know, that list of new features that I was showing and some of the changes in that roadmap that I'll hopefully post. So we're not really planning to do that in WinUI 3, but one of the nice things about the new model is that we could actually then have new versions, and so we follow the semantic versioning scheme. So anything WinUI 3 should be compatible with anything else WinUI 3, but assuming we decide to do some of these things, we could then have a WinUI 4 that does make some breaking changes. So I could definitely see us revisiting this in the future after WinUI 3 ships. We'll go to, I guess, the question lines.
Yes. So we have, pardon me, we have about 40 questions waiting.
Right,
so
well,
we can
unfortunately,
try.
I don't think we're going to get to all of those.
Yeah,
Really
but
sorry.
we can try and hustle as much as we
let's do
can.
it.
And unfortunately, due to the audio issues that persisted from the last call, Jesse, Miguel, and I are going to try and take all of the questions in this room.
But we have a secret line to the lead developers. So.
Yeah, we have a link to the team, so we'll do the best we can. First question comes from Martin Anderson. He says, looking at Windows 10X, Win32 apps run in a Veil container. What about WinUI 3.0 non-UWP, e.g. desktop apps? Will they appear to run as native UWP apps do on 10X, or will they be in a Win32 container?
It's going to be in Veil.
Yeah, it'll be in a container. Although, like the programming model should be again very similar, but kind of like those videos I linked earlier. Peter Tor, another program manager on in our division, talked about the different containers. So you'll be able to run apps in like a UWP container or in a Win32 container. And if it's a Win32 app, it's going to run in like the Win32 or M6 container.
Sweet. So I'm just going to hurry through these while we can. So another one from InfoEquipped asks, I'm interested to know what the plan for WinUI app isolation is going forward. From an enterprise perspective, we need isolation and sandboxing and capability control, not user opt-in.
So what that means, they want to turn off the app container, they want to go a little more clarification about that.
Yeah, in terms of isolation, so yes, there will be app container support. The goal is that, you know, that'll be sort of an opt-in or out feature. So if you want the benefits of app container isolation, then yeah, you'll be able to do that. And if you can't live with that, if you just have a Win32 app that you need outside an app container, then that should be possible as well. So WinUI doesn't really change anything with the general app container model. It just allows you to use the UI platform sort of on either app model. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
Here's a question for you, Miguel. PJMLP asks, applications lack the ability to turn off taskbar and title bar pop-ups when the mouse is moved to the top and bottom edge of the screen. This is a deal breaker for many games and maybe some apps which utilize screen edge in their own UIs for things, like camera pan or pop-ups. When will this be fixed? This may be a Windows issue, but it needs to be driven by an API, so it's relevant to WinUI.
This is a good question.
I don't think that's specific to WinUI. That's sort of like a shell and composition thing. So we can actually raise that question with the appropriate teams and maybe, you know, get back to that. But that's not specifically our area. I do know that sort of with, you know, DirectX 12 and stuff, we're kind of moving away from the whole exclusive mode concept necessarily, and being able to compose content with the DWM is pretty helpful for everybody. So you know, I think we'll continue down that path. But I know edge scrolling is a thing that people use, so we can look into that.
I'll take a question here. People across almost every comment stream have called out my Uno shirt. So let me just take a chance to say, if you guys haven't checked out Uno, totally worth it. Their mission is WinUI everywhere, so they can help you get your apps to mobile and WebAssembly. They have a conference coming up this August, and most recently they announced some exciting news that one of their top asks, which is being able to build WebAssembly apps in Visual Studio on Windows using ahead-of-time compilation, just got released. So there's a shout out to their blog as well.
I think they just ported over our two-pane view control for 10X recently.
They did. I heard it took them less than 24 hours to make that happen.
Awesome.
So
Wow.
it's a crazy good project. Definitely worth checking out.
Again, not affiliated in any way. We just love what they're doing.
They're great people. So we have another question here. Can we get WinUI to include the core window iframework view app model for when we want to bypass XAML and render directly to a window-bound swap chain? It might sound odd requesting that WinUI provide a non-XAML surface, but I think the core window belongs to the XAML window called window and UWP in the same library, also separated from UWP to make it available in .NET 5.
So hopefully in a week or two, I guess, once Miguel is able to post his windowing spec, you can kind of see where it looks like we're headed right now, and we'd love to hear your feedback on that and how a suggestion like this could fit in.
Sure. And also we are going to continue using the composition layer so in the new windowing API, so we can continue using that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And that was from Gavin Williams. Robert Sundstrom asks, I would like to hear more about any thoughts on potentially being able to use programming languages such as Java, Python, JavaScript, etc. when building apps using WinUI / Microsoft UI. I know there's a project called Xlang, or I think that means pronounced crosslang, sorry, which essentially seems like
we say Xlang too.
which essentially seems like what .NET should have been a better COM. How does that relate to WinUI?
So again, with WinUI 3, we're not focused on any new language support explicitly aside from .NET 5 and C++. Well, I guess those aren't new, but being able to support those. And so new language projections over time, and especially being able to compile XAML markup to them is definitely an interesting area. So there's actually a proposal in the repo, and people have also asked about, like F# and other options like that. And so once we go open source, it would be really interesting to see what the community thinks about being able to refactor our XAML parser to be able to do some of that kind of stuff. So for WinUI 3, we're not really focused on that, but I could definitely see us exploring this more in the future. And I think like Kenny Kerr maybe was looking into some bindings for Rust or something like that recently as well. So
he's working on that. Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Cool.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more.
Yeah, well, I'll keep rushing through it. Can we go a few minutes later since we started a few minutes late?
We'll see if they kick us out.
We'll see if they kick us out. Okay, I'll take one real quick that I know a few people are interested in. There's a question asking, does the WinUI team take interns? Microsoft is always hiring interns. Check out our careers website. We don't get a lot of say in the interns we get, but if you apply, make it through the interviews, and we find you in the pool of people we can pick from, we'd be happy to reach out to some of our biggest fans.
And we definitely try to match up people's interests and talents with good teams that might be a good fit.
Yeah, with the thousands of interns that come every year, it's hard to guarantee anything, but it's always worth a shot because there's tons of amazing projects and teams here at Microsoft. So next question, does WinUI 3 support custom shader effects like WPF and Silverlight did? If not, are there any thoughts on adding them later? Is the rendering layer used by WinUI even capable of this?
Yeah, so we use the composition layer, which is based on DirectX, and any rendering we do ourselves is also pretty much DirectX based. So it tends to be, as much as possible, all hardware accelerated and all that awesome stuff. And so the composition layer does support effects through like an effect brush model, which I think they actually use Win2D, like Direct2D effect definitions for those. So you can use those in XAML today through XAML composition brush base to plug in a composition effect brush. And we think that's a pretty good model, and you get way better performance out of it than WPF or anything like that. So yeah, we'll definitely keep working on that.
Cool. I'll take one here. Ahmed Khan asks, when will rounded corners come? They already have. WinUI 2.2 included a wave of style updates that feature the new rounded corners look. The corner radius values are fully customizable, and you can use the XAML Fluent theme editor to easily build a theme with the rounding corners you like best. And
the default control styles are getting updated, right? So with WinUI 2, like for example, I think the number box one we saw earlier had slightly rounded corners.
Yeah, we did on 2.3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. I would like to try developing apps for Windows for fun. What could you recommend to me as a starting point? That comes from Mario B.
Yeah, check out docs.microsoft.com, and it has tons of getting started sort of documentation and yeah. Another thing we could also point out is there's the UWP community Discord channel, right?
So, linked him there.
Yeah, yep. We're not affiliated in any way. Again, we just kind of like what they're doing. So if you search for that, it's a community of developers building UWP apps that seem pretty great.
Perfect. Okay, here is another good one. When will app window become stable?
We're not the app model experts. It's still an experimental state right now. And what we're mostly focused on right now is really the WinUI windowing story. And so again, take a look and hopefully later this month, maybe when we post the latest on the windowing story.
Cool. Here's another one for Miguel. Will WinUI desktop apps be able to use UWP jump list API? Currently, desktop bridge apps cannot effectively use them because the app seemingly can't be activated. See Windows Terminal issue, insert link, for brief overview of the problem. If you'd like to fully support if you would like full support for this API for WinUI desktop apps, I would like full support for this API for WinUI desktop apps because they are much easier to work with than the Win32/WPF APIs. For example, jump list task icons can be easily set using the MS-APPX or MS-APP data URI schemes instead of having to create an exe or DLL containing the image, then set a path to the binary file, and then also offset into the file path for the specific icon.
This is a very good recommendation. So I really appreciate that. The thing is, we didn't have time yet to investigate about how we are going to support jump lists. It's something is in the backlog, but we didn't reach this point yet. So it's something that we are, for sure, we will make a decision, but I don't know the answer at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're really ramping up on the desktop work starting basically around now. So, keep watch on the repo for more stuff like this. Yeah. Maybe we can do one more and then we definitely are over time.
Here's another one for Miguel. There are a host of problems facing XAML islands presently. Do you think that WinUI can be, do you think that WinUI can become the next line of business ready framework for the next 10 years? And then they went on to link some issues related to XAML islands.
So this is a big question. So line of business application means it's not about the presentation framework, it's about the framework underneath and all the things that it support. For example, the architecture that the application can support. So talking about WinUI, like the line of business applications, like about talking WPF as line of business, the line of business application. So it's more, you need to think about that. Is .NET framework a good framework for line of business application? And if yes, which is the presentation framework that is fixing your requirements? Is WinUI 3? We will say yes because we will get all the controls, but you require for making this decision, you require more than the presentation framework. You require a lot of hundreds of APIs to support all this logic and architecture and scenarios. So the question is, you think about presentation framework? Yeah, for sure. We are going to invest in having the best controls in the market, but there's more stuff to think about.
Absolutely. And I'll note WinUI 3.0 is still in alpha, so we'll expect some, I hope, significant performance increases and a lot of the problems listed here resolved in the coming months.
Oh yeah, definitely people should not be, banking on the performance of the current alpha or anything like that. There's some automated optimizations and stuff that we haven't turned on, and it's just definitely not representative yet.
Cool.
All right, I think we're going to have to call it there.
Stop there.
I know there's a lot more. So, we have an issue on the WinUI GitHub repo, and we can definitely continue the conversation there. We're sorry we don't have more time. We love that, everybody has these questions. So, again, we're also in that UWP community Discord channel. If people are interested in that, maybe we could get a link to that as well. And again, we're not affiliated or anything like that, but we have a WinUI channel there that some of us are in. So we can talk there or on GitHub.
Yeah, and like Jesse said, we have a big list of your questions collected, so we can try our best to reply on GitHub, in the Discord, and maybe next month, we can try and dedicate a little more time to tackling some of the bigger questions we didn't get to.
Yeah,
perhaps?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. All right, thanks, Miguel, for joining us, talking about WinUI Desktop,
pleasure.
And we're looking forward to seeing some updates on windowing in the coming weeks.
And thanks, everyone, for tuning in and for asking questions on Twitter, GitHub, Teams, YouTube. I think I've got everything. Yeah, we really appreciate everyone tuning in to talk to us, ask your questions, and have fun.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.